As entrepreneurs, we all have a reason why we chose to leave our 9 to 5 for an 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. I'm here to capture those stories of why we all hustle and grind for our companies. Jon is a top 10 speaker, 3-time business owner, and servant-minded leader. He has a heart to see people make a positive impact that changes the world. Leveraging 20-plus years of diverse leadership experience, he shares inspirational stories that will leave you challenged, laughing, and inspired to do your part to change the world. So, Jon, thank you so much for being on the podcast today. I really appreciate it. And before we ask you what you do, you have a really interesting history. And what that is I've seen a lot of different people start businesses when they were younger. I have a good friend of mine that started a business at 16. I tried to start one at 17. I think the youngest person I've ever heard in my sphere of influence, at least, started a business at 12. You went well beyond that. Like, what was your business? The first one you started, what was it? Why? As well.
7 years old, I noticed that the lady down the street had grass that wasn't mowed. And at 7 years old, I thought there's an opportunity. So I went to my dad. I said, can I borrow the lawnmower? I'm going to go see. We called her the crabapple tree lady because she had a big crabapple tree in her front yard. I don't even know her name to this day, I don't think. And I said, hey, the crabapple tree lady's yard needs mowed. Can I borrow the mower? And my dad, I tell you, we always finick over what our parents could have done different or whatever. There's no doubt my dad taught us business and money and work ethic. Those are three things that our dad just, all me and all four of my siblings. And so he said, sure, not a problem. You're using my mower though. So you're going to pay me $1 for every yard that you mow to use my mower. And then you can keep the rest. And we started by, planning it out a little bit. We decided that a regular yard, this was in Colorado where I grew up, a regular yard would be $3, I think. And if it was a corner yard, we'd do $4. I quickly realized those rates were not enough. I think I raised them to like 7 to 10 within a matter of weeks. But yeah, that was the first thing. And we went all out. Jon's Lawn Care. We had shirts made and flyers printed. And by the time I was probably 9, I had purchased 2 of my own mowers and a weed whacker. And we really went, I was serious and I was known and I all over the place. And every Saturday I would traipse around looking for lawns. And then throughout the week, I would have appointments set to go mow lawns. And if it wasn't summer, we were raking leaves. If it wasn't spring or fall, we were shoveling sidewalks. And it went to Jon's Lawn Care. And we just were there to serve really our whole, I would say, community, because it wasn't like a block. I mean, I think by the time I moved out of Colorado, which I was 15 when that happened, I'm going to guess we were probably a 15 to 20 block radius of space that we were serving. And by we, at that point, I had my siblings working for me, and we were a force to be reckoned with.
That is amazing. And that is an unusual story because most of the time it's like entrepreneurial kids have no idea what to do and they don't have parents to support them. At least your parents kind of saw this and were able to say, okay, here's what we do. Here's what happens, and give you those guidelines that most parents can't do. And I say can't intentionally because it's just so far outside their experience. But that's a really fascinating thing that at 7 years old, you're out there hustling.
And honestly, by the time I was 12, I ran lemonade stands. I had found, those catalogs that your kids might use to go like raise money for a school trip. I found one that would pay me cash for every item I sold. So I was selling things. There was a couple of businesses in downtown that I would work for, stocking shelves or just so anything I could. Newspapers, delivered newspapers and sold newspaper subscriptions. If there was a way to make $1, I was going to figure out how to make it too.
Was this just something you intrinsically did? Like you felt drawn to this, or because this isn't what I'm thinking of is I have a niece, she's 11, really entrepreneurial kid. And I try hard to support her in that and try to show her those good, like work hard, go out and make money, stick with it, that sort of a thing. And it's difficult with kids.
Very.
For you, I want to hear kind of was this just something intrinsically, or was there some like one main thing in your head that happened to you in your experience that said, dude, this is a cool idea. Like, what was that good friend of mine has a podcast called The Ignition Point, and it's like there's this one ignition point we have in our world that makes us an entrepreneur. And shout out to Debbie on that one. But
thanks, Debbie.
What was yours? Like, what was that point that you have?
I think for me, it was kind of a culture thing. So I'm the oldest of 5.
Okay.
Raised in a single income family. My parents are still together, but my dad worked, and I was homeschooled most of my life, or all my life. And so I had time. The rule was I had to do school. It was a very high priority. My parents did not let us slack off at all. But once I had finished my coursework, I
Mhm.
had a lot of freedom to go out as long as it was being productive. So I
Mhm.
think that there was an environment that fostered productivity, and that old saying, "We were po, we didn't have the money for the R." I think really did apply to us. A story I sometimes tell. I don't always tell this story, so your viewers are going to get something that not everyone gets. But a indelible memory in my mind was a time when I decided I was too old for tidy whities,
Uh-huh.
and I wanted boxer shorts.
Uh-huh.
And my dad did not make much money. My dad worked very hard, but he'll tell you to this day that all of us kids make more than he does.
Mhm.
And he raised some really good, hardworking kids, but he couldn't afford it. He had a very strict budget, and so he sat me down and he said, "Well, here's the deal. I can get a 6 pack of tidy whities for $3. The boxer shorts cost $2 a piece. When you can make up the difference, you can have the boxer shorts." And so I
Mhm.
went and made out the difference.
Mhm. Now, how did I know you said mow the crab apple lady's lawn, down as far as the mowing business is concerned. What other? How did you come up with these ideas? Like, what was going through your 7-year-old brain to say, besides her lawn's really long, that sort of thing? What
Yeah.
other things went through your brain, like to get you to that point?
Well, I think the it was often an opportunity that presented itself because hard work magnetizes opportunity.
Hmm.
Just bottom line. Anybody that is a hard worker, I have a saying I love to, and I say it to anyone I mentor or whatever, that every conversation is a job interview. Even if you're not looking for 9 to 5. So your the example I would give would be that I was mowing a lady's lawn and her son happened to come over. Well, her son owned a produce business. He saw a diligent guy working away, and he was like, "Hey, do you want to go deliver flyers for me in Old Town? I need someone to go pass them out to the restaurants. I'll give you 15 cents a flyer." So I went and did that. My next door neighbor would see me diligent. He owned the house, actually two houses in the neighborhood that he rented out when they needed refurbishing. Hey, you want to come help refurbish? I need some diligent hands. And so those opportunities opened. I don't know what prompted me to start selling and delivering newspapers. That probably was something I heard somebody did, and I thought, hey, I got a bike, I can do that. Um, the helping with the convenience store. I used to help stock the shelves at a convenience store and make the coffee. I'd get in there at 4 a.m. and get everything set up for them. That was because of a day I was shoveling sidewalks and I decided, hey, why not? I'm going to try to go shovel there, see if they'll pay me to shovel around their lot.
Uh-huh.
They said yes. And then they said, do you want a job? And they couldn't pay me officially. So they paid me out of their petty cash.
Uh-huh.
And I went in and made coffee for them and stocked their shelves every morning at 4 a.m. So a lot of it was just hard work, the grind, the hustle. It attracts opportunity. And if you're willing to take that opportunity, you can do some really great things.
Exactly. And I think that's something that a lot of kids aren't taught is they're taught to be in the standard 9 to 5 to do your thing and go and work and do this path. And we're not taught that money is an unlimited resource. Go out and make some more and find out ways to make that work. And I think that's
Yeah.
the change, yeah. Because I saw that with my niece. It's like, she thinks that things are just done in this specific way. And
Mhm.
but the reason I wanted to ask this is I believe that that parents see that entrepreneurship in kids early on,
Yeah.
and some parents don't understand it. Like, they want to help with all of the best of intentions, they just don't know how, and
Yeah.
they don't know what's going through their kids' minds because it's very, very different than what there is. Again, it's like
Yes.
listening to an orchestra out of tune and everyone's going, yep, everything's fine. No, it isn't. We think differently, we're wired
Yeah.
differently, and having the resources to be able to help kids like that is something I'm a huge advocate for, because I believe that, like you're an excellent example, or other friends that have started early businesses.
Yeah.
We need that support for those parents to be able to say, all right, I have no idea what's going through my kid's head right now. I need a hand.
And I would encourage those parents or aunts and uncles or grandparents or whoever they are to not let ego get in the way. Cause I think that happens too, where there's this, like you said, it's a different tune that's playing. And
Mhm.
because of that, it's scary to them. No, no, you can't do that. You're going to get hurt. You're never going to make anything of yourself. Do the safe thing. And I would just say, hey, put the ego down
Mhm.
and let them try, especially while they're young.
Mhm.
How much better for them to fail miserably while they're young and they've got you as a support net
Yeah.
to see if this is what they want to do versus you shield them and protect them. And then now they're stuck in the same rut
Mhm.
that everybody else is. I'm trying to remember what Kiyosaki calls it, the rat race.
Yeah.
The rat race,
Yeah.
why put them there because of fear? And so I think you're
Mhm.
absolutely right. I love
Yeah,
that.
I think it's ego and fear, and
Yeah.
it's very much a fear-based response where, oh, I don't want them to fail. Well, failure is an awesome thing. I fail way more often than I win. And I have learned from every single one of those failures, like
Mhm.
constant,
Yes.
and if I could have, I mean, looking back, if I could have done that, when I was younger and failed badly and failed often and learned
Yeah.
all of those things, my life would be very different. And so that's why I wanted to kind of, I like to make sure, especially somebody in your situation where you can say it from the kid's standpoint,
Mhm.
this is what I wish I would have heard, or this is what I heard that drove me forward. This was the narrative.
Yes.
And I really, that's why I wanted to hone in on that story because I feel it's very important. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Awesome. So 7-year-old mowing lawns, what are you up to today? I know you got
And
three
that,
businesses, you're a speaker.
yeah. So right now, my biggest passion is SML Consultive. We essentially what happened is I was a training manager for a specialty logistics company, and we recognized, or I recognized, that our frontline leaders were not getting the tools they needed.
Okay.
They were getting promoted into supervisor, manager, whatever, and then we couldn't figure out why the wheels were falling off.
Mhm.
And I had this long-standing fight with the CEO, like we need to provide leadership development. Finally, she acquiesced a little bit, and so I went out to find a solution to try to give our frontline leaders the tools they needed, and found there really wasn't any.
Mhm.
All of the tools were designed for executives.
Mhm.
Everybody wants to be an executive coach, an executive developer, whatever. And the executive leadership development is important, but that wasn't the problem we were trying to solve. And I could go on for the next hour on why it's not actually helping cultures of companies as much as people think it is.
Mhm.
And as an entrepreneur, you see a need, you see that nobody is filling that need, and you think, do I have what it takes? Do I have a mower available to me? Do I
Mhm.
have a shovel? I was talking to my grandma. My grandma lived in Chicago at the time, and I used to shovel side. I go up to there for a Christmas vacation and shovel sidewalks while I was there. She said she never forgot. We came back with $50 in our hand at like 9 years old, and she's like, "What just happened?" And so you asked, like, do I have the resources? And it was in that moment that it occurred to me that I had been inadvertently or maybe unofficially training leaders for 20 years.
Mhm.
And I was like, I have what it takes. I don't know that I could necessarily add a ton of value to a CEO. I probably could a little, but there's
Mhm.
other people that are better suited to serve CEOs.
Yeah.
Man, I could add a ton to these people that are directors and managers and supervisors and team leaders and this stuff. And they are sinking and they're just looking for a life preserver. And so that's what the business aims to do. SML Consultative aims to meet that need for organizations. And I quickly, of course, with just a small amount of research, realized that wasn't just our company. It was pretty much every company that had the same basic issue and the same results. And so we've been trying to solve that. And um, it's a passion of mine. And I could just, I mean, I could go on and on, but that's my big passion at the moment.
Well, and it's something that's really necessary. So again, I've been in the learning industry for 20 years. I've been training managers. I've been in these industries, and one of the things I found with a lot of corporations is there is this focus on, like you said, training executives. But what often happens is the executives or get all of these resources. It's the frontline managers that are people who were really good at what they did, but maybe absolutely terrible leaders, not by any fault of their own.
Yeah.
It's just not in their skill set. So what it is they get promoted because they're good at what they do, not because they're good leaders. And there's no support mechanism to give them better leaders. And that's why we keep seeing, especially in retail positions, terrible managers.
Yes.
It's because of this, and it's not being
Ah,
addressed because it's not considered to be a problem.
I, 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 I love that. I mean, I couldn't say it better myself. I've said to so many people the difference between the best barista at Starbucks and the worst leader of that team is
Yeah.
still miles apart,
Yeah.
because being the best at a job and being even a mediocre leader are not the same thing. I
Mhm.
had one leader, executive leader, tell me, why? All I need them to do is make copies of themselves.
Mm,
I said, you don't get it.
no.
You don't get it. And you're right. They're left without help. They want to do good. They want to be good managers. They can't figure out what they're doing wrong. But nobody wants to invest in them the way that they want to. And I'll add one thing: the executive leaders, it's good. They need resources, but the reality is this: the executive leaders are not the one primarily or usually that's interacting with the staff.
Mhm. Yeah.
They're busy in meetings. They're dealing with suppliers. They're dealing with other executives. They're dealing with investors. They're dealing with what, maybe they're out on the golf course. I don't know. But what I do know is they're not on the front lines with the people,
Yeah.
and they're not impacting the general culture of everyday life at the job. Many times people may know their name, possibly. Sometimes they don't even have that. And they're
Mhm.
thinking, well, because I know how to be a leader, the culture is going to be fixed.
Yeah.
Not if the frontline leaders don't know how to build a great culture.
Mhm. Very, very true. Because that's not what the executives are there to guide the ship and say, we need to change culture. They're
Yes.
not the ones that are going to affect the change, though. And I think
Correct.
that, they think that's because corporate culture is a big buzzword. But and I think it's important. Kelly, a good friend of mine, has that's his big thing, is his the vibe, that corporate culture and building it, and he built a very good one. But especially in the corporate world, in the 9 to 5 world, I think it's really difficult because there's this completely different mindset around it.
Yeah.
It's just, let's just, oh well, they're really good, let's promote them, and not really even thinking about it. Yeah. And
Yeah.
then we have corporate culture, we have spirit days, and it's all good. And yeah, yeah, I get it.
And it's
uh,
your turn for employee of the month.
exactly, right? For the seventh time.
Yes,
I think
exactly.
it almost gets to the point where being voted a manager, at least in my experiences in retail, being voted a manager is similar to being voted the president of the HOA. The only ones crazy enough to take it are the crazy ones. I don't know. That's what I thought.
Yeah, it's remarkable. It's remarkable.
Well, and I think there is a vacuum, and I think it's true to some extent, not uh, more because there isn't that support. You're kind of thrown out there and said, "Here, good luck with that," and
Yes,
that's it. It's a
absolutely.
copy of the corporate manage, copy of the corporate manual, pat on the back, and good luck.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
And it makes you unfortunately makes you the scapegoat, and so people are
yeah.
burnt out, and then you talk about wanting to get out of 9 to 5 and into entrepreneurialism and into something better. Well, they're so burned out, and they're so discouraged, and they're so beat down that they don't
Mhm.
even have any energy left to do anything else. They just become a drone. And they
Yeah,
don't want that. That's not the life they want. They long for something more. They long for greater impact. They long to find their passion and their destiny in life, and they're just getting absolutely beaten down. So
yeah.
helping
Very,
to
very good.
solve that problem a little bit is something I'm really enjoying.
Good. And it's nice to have a passion, especially when you found a blue ocean and you found something that you can do the most good.
Yes.
That is something that's difficult. It's a very difficult position to be in. And I've seen it with big companies too, and not just retail. I've seen it with large companies and having these issues.
Yes.
Absolutely. So now so you've got three different companies. Tell me a little bit more about servant-minded leader. What do you mean
So
by that?
servant-minded leadership, SML consultative, the SML part stands for servant-minded leadership. The servant-minded leadership part of it is the YouTube channel, the Instagram, the Facebook, whatever, that is basically attached to SML consultative. So anything that we put out, I think we have, I don't know, 300 videos or something like that, that just to try to provide value add to individuals. But servant-minded leadership was my epiphany that servant leadership had gone off the rails just a bit.
Okay.
I love servant leadership. I believe in servant leadership. But what happened, and it's the same thing I'm facing even with my business, right? If I go talk to an executive and try to get them to hire the company, hire SML consultant, I've got to prove an ROI.
Mhm.
And that's just the facts of business, right? If you're not making money by what you do, you're spending money and you're a red line item, and we're going to try to get rid of you as fast as we can. So you got to prove why this is good, why this is going to benefit. But what I think happened is, because in general, the servant leadership model was so busy promoting how it was going to help the bottom line, their messaging to actual leaders got messed up.
Hmm.
And so it became a quid pro quo message of, if you will be a servant leader, you will get this from your team, and your team will do this better and that, and it'll all come back to you. And I said, wait a minute, servant leadership is supposed to be about giving, not about taking. And so I just injected the word mindfulness, minded, and basically said servant minded leaders recognize that they have the unique capacity to positively impact the lives in front of them. Are they going to take it? They are going to have an impact. Will it be positive? Will it be negative? That is their choice. And it just tries to bring it back to a centered approach of, these are human beings. And as a leader, whether you're a formal leader, an informal leader, a frontline leader, an executive leader, whatever type of leader you are, what are you doing to and for the lives that are looking to you for leadership? And that is the heart of the love-based, servant-minded leadership that SML Consultative provides and promotes.
Something that I say to the people that work with me is, I want to leave you in a better position. I want to leave you in a better condition than I found you. Yes. And I think it's a similar thing where, and as leaders, I think that is I actually very strongly believe that is our duty to the people that work with us, is we are to leave them in a better condition than we found them, and we are to edify their lives and help. And we to varying degrees. Yes. And that's the intention that we set out with. There are some people that, it's a job 9 to 5. It's going to be difficult to do that with, but still, even with people that might be difficult to do that with, that we try to attain that. So I think that's a really good, I like your take on that, because it's different than what we're like you said, we're used to hearing servant leaders. And I like the tack that you took on that and kind of made it a little bit different. That's nice. That's good, man. Awesome. Was there like a specific thing that had you come up with, like an aha moment that had you come up with this, or just observing over the years and that's it?
Yeah, kind of observing over the years, really. It was, I'm sure there was an aha moment, but as you know, in journeys like ours, when you're an entrepreneur, you're learning every single day. There is no mindless repetition when you're starting things and doing things and talking to people and reading books, and you have to keep growing, because if you're not growing, you're dying. And that's the way we think, and that's the way you have to think. And so I can't pinpoint exactly when it was, but I do remember sitting in the room. I was in the office with my wife, and I was like, wait a minute. This is the difference. Like, this is what I hadn't even articulated. I'd already called it servant-minded leadership. I had already, and that mainly because I needed something that wasn't already taken in terms of domain names. And then I realized our messaging is intrinsically different from what everybody else is messaging. Everybody else is talking ROI, ROI, ROI. And I recognize from a sales perspective, you kind of have to. But I said, I want to guard our curricula and guard our coaching. And I want to make sure we never turn that into ROI. I want to maintain a mindfulness of the opportunity and the immense responsibility that we have. And I love what you said about leaving people in a better shape than they came. I just had that conversation with 2 people last week. And I said, guys, here's the deal. I know that our paths are not going to continue together forever. And I hope that I've been faithful in the moments to lead you well and to empower you so that you are in better shape when our paths part than you were when our paths first merged. And I hope that you're carrying that to your teams, and that you are now empowering them, and that the ripple effect is happening, because that is the call of leadership. And anybody that disagrees, I'll argue with until the sun goes down.
Absolutely. Very, very well said. So now you have, we were talking in the green room a little bit, you've got an interesting transition. You have a 9 to 5 currently that you're using to support your businesses. And this is kind of typical, entrepreneurs sometimes do this, where we have that point, that transition point between when your businesses are actually up and going and standing on their own, when, the kids are walking.
Yes. Yeah.
They are our children, aren't they?
Yeah, they are. Take about as much time too.
Exactly. And to be able to, something that you said earlier to me in the green room, where it's like, you felt this responsibility that I now have a family to support, I have a wife to support. And that was something that was really important to you. And I think as guys, that's kind of our role is we support. That's what we do.
Yeah.
And, so, I applaud you for, doing that, and for keeping up with that duty that you have, as the husband, as the man in the family. But tell me a little bit about kind of what that transition is going to look, because it's going to happen pretty soon. And
Yeah.
what had gotten you to that point where you were like, okay, I'm ready to separate. I'm ready to completely just cut the cords and go on
Yeah.
my.
So something I didn't mention in the green room is past businesses that I've started have gone really well really fast, and it was nice, right? Like it was just I saw a need and I met the need and it worked. And 7 years old, and within a couple of weeks my lawn service is booming, right? When I started SML Consultative, I guess I just anticipated faster success. And so the
Mhm.
plan was at that time when I first started, this was the beginning of 2023. I said to myself, I said, okay, by the end of 2024, I've got this number of revenue that I'm looking for. And if I achieve that, we're going to cut the 9 to 5. Or if we get to a point in the meantime where the demand is greater and I can no longer effectively serve the 9 to 5, because I really try to be a person of integrity in my life. And so if I'm, basically ripping somebody off who's paying me full time because I'm over here starting my other business, to me, that's the seeds that I'm planting aren't going to yield good fruits at that point.
Mhm.
So I said, okay, that's kind of the line. And it got to about August, and I thought to myself, okay, things are not growing the way that I anticipated they would. I knew that there was a huge need. And I knew it was going to be tough. I knew it was going to be tough. But what I didn't take into account is two major factors that in my business are really tough. And the first one is, as we've talked about, nobody's doing what I'm doing, or at least very few people. And so it's kind of a new industry. So whenever you're a new industry, you have to convince everyone that you're necessary.
Yep.
And that presents a humongous challenge. The second thing is I've got a different consumer than I do customer. I've got to sell to HR and to executives for the purpose of benefiting the frontline managers, because no team lead can afford personalized coaching.
Yeah.
It's just the reality. So
Yeah.
those are two big things. So in August of last year, I was in this mindset, and I said, okay, I got to make a decision. One of two things has to happen. Either I need to burn the bridges and go full-fledged, and I'm going to have to put way more time into this than I currently am, because the current amount of input is not getting the expected amount of output.
Mhm.
Or I'm going to have to change the goal, and I'm going to have to decide, okay, you know what? Maybe this 1 year plan is going to extend itself. And as I was mulling that over, the company that I was working for basically came to me and they said, we need you to step into a much higher position within the organization. We're taking you from a manager. We want to make you a director. We want you to lead 4 or 5 teams in 3 different continents, blah, blah, blah. And so I came back to my wife and I said, hey, what do we think of this plan? Because this would change some things. Usually if you take a position like that, you're looking at probably at least a 2 year commitment for something like that. And I said, this is good because it's going to give me a lot more experience in some of the things that I want to be able to help others with. So the experience I have is great, but more experience is good. But it does lock us in. And so now what this does is if we make this choice, we're going to let SML Consultative build more organically. We're going to build trust just by continuing to put out good content, continue to put out value, doing talks, doing the things we've been doing, and then maybe not beat down doors.
Mhm.
The bottom line is we made the decision to go ahead and go that route. Go ahead and let it build organically. Instead of forcing the issue, we decided to continue to pursue it, but pursue it for 4 hours a day instead of 12,
Uh,
which is, as you and I were talking about, 12 to 14-hour days are pretty much necessary when you're going to be living off your own bread.
yep.
And so we made that decision. I took the position. It's been a wonderful. The 2 people I mentioned a minute ago, those are 2 of the managers that report to me that I've had the privilege of really investing into them, and it's been a really wonderful time. But in the meantime, thankfully, this episode's not going to come out for a few months. So in the meantime, we were bought out, and there's just a fundamental misalignment of upper management at this
Yeah.
point. And so what was going to be a 2 year commitment, very unlikely that's going to happen. Right now, I'm already looking at what's the exit strategy. I'm there for my team right now. I'm there to be a good leader. I'm
Mhm.
there to effectively serve the people that are looking to me for leadership and for a buffer zone. Because if you've ever been in a
Uh-huh.
toxic environment, having that one good leader can make your life infinitely better.
Yeah.
And so I'm trying to provide that, but that's not a long-term solution.
Yeah.
So the chances are very good. You talked about what's it going to look like. We've been saving. We're at a
Mhm.
position, or we will be very soon, where we can have some months of buffer zone to get things going. And thankfully, we've got a couple of clients that are currently looking to do some pretty large things. And I think the combination of those three things, I told my wife, I think it was just yesterday or the day before, that if I am still working a 9 to 5 by the end of the third quarter, I know we're at the beginning of the third quarter right now. By the end of the third quarter, something radical has changed, because right now we're talking days or weeks, not months or years.
Well, then it came that point where I like to call it the the 2x4 of consciousness that's owned by the
Yeah.
universe that smacks you upside the head and says you
Yeah.
are changing.
Yes.
There's not a
Exactly.
question.
Yes.
And I think sometimes we need that. I
We do.
did. I just
Yeah.
needed a moment where there was at one point I sent out 300 resumes and did not get a single hit on it. And it's like the 2x4 of consciousness just hit and
Mhm.
smacked me upside the head, and I need to do something different. I
Yeah.
think you're getting into the same situation too. And oftentimes we see these as bad things, and which is a very, very fear-based response, but it's nice to hear you going, nope, I'm ready. Let's do this.
Yes.
You may not be ready, but let's do this. I have the ability to do
I
this.
no, I like what you said. I think you're right. I think that the time is manifesting itself,
Mhm.
and whether I feel ready or not is irrelevant. I think that if the opportunity is manifesting, I am ready, and I just need to step
Mhm.
into that readiness.
Yeah. And so I'm rereading the book, The Alchemist, again, because it's such a great book. And one of the things they say in there is that when you have a desire for something, the universe will conspire in your favor.
Yes.
I quoted this book and didn't even realize I was quoting it. It was
Oh,
great.
that's awesome.
But it's really true, though, that, when you put your mind to something and you make up your mind on something, the universe will conspire in your favor. And it sounded like
Yeah.
you did.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah. So we're there. We're excited, and I know you and I talked in the green room about possibly coming back. Maybe by the time I come back, we'll be there.
I would love to have you come back and say, I did it.
Yes, absolutely.
And here's what happened, and here's how it went, and here's all the
Yes.
mistakes that happened, and here's how I dealt with it. Because it's gonna,
And
it's how it's gonna go.
mistakes are
That's
the
part
learning
of it.
opportunities. That's the best part.
Mistake. A good friend of mine says that mistake is another word for learn. Yes,
Yes.
very, very true.
Yes.
So we are getting towards the end of the podcast,
Yeah.
and I have one question I ask every person, and that is, what is a book or podcast that has had a significant impact on your life?
Yeah, I'll take the book, because
Sure.
I'm a voracious reader, love reading.
Mhm.
And in fact, I think there's some books back behind me. I got 10 boxes of books under the bed, though. So,
Nice,
in
nice.
any case, both of my answers are cliche, though. I hate to do it. The number one for
Okay.
me personally in my journey, the Bible has had an infinite
Mhm.
impact in my life. Professionally, however, the good old 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Let me just tell
Ah,
you that thing. It had a humongous impact years and years ago, and there are still lessons that I talk to people, and I'm like, have you read that book? Because I feel like I'm explaining the entire chapter 4 to you right now. And if you just read
mhm.
the book, we can save ourselves a bunch of time.
Yeah, I remember I read that book when I was 20.
Okay.
And
Right about the same
it
time
was
I
one of
did.
those
Yeah.
books that kind of started me off on a journey going, wait, okay, wait, I have another orchestra I need to be listening
Yeah.
to. This one's out of
Yeah.
tune, nothing's right here. Let's start to
Yes.
see what's going on. And so
Yeah.
I took it, and it was great. And you are the second person to say the Bible too. So you're not the only one out there,
Wonderful.
but lots of really great inspired wisdom there as well. There's just a lot you can take out of it. Well, Jon, thank you so much for being on the podcast. Yeah, we'll have to have you back again once you get everything transitioned. I'd love to hear the ending, the conclusion, part two to the story. It
Yeah.
would be wonderful to hear, man.
Wonderful. It's been an absolute privilege. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, my pleasure. Thanks again for joining us on the Hustle and Grind podcast. If you'd like to learn more about Joe, check out the link in the description.